Hey, Ethan here, and in this episode we'll be looking at the original Resident Evil, specifically the 2002 remake for the Nintendo Gamecube, but I'll be personally playing it on the PS4 because I don't currently own an actual Gamecube. But anyway, it's time for me to explain more about the original Resident Evil remake.
The year is 1996, and Capcom releases a small title by the name of Resident Evil, or Biohazard in Japan, for the PlayStation 1. It ultimately ended up being a huge success, spanning multiple other sequels and side games, and also creating the subgenre of survival horror for its focus on exploration, solving puzzles, and finding items with limited resources and surviving various monsters. However, in 2002, Capcom decided to release a remake of the 1996 classic for the Nintendo Gamecube as part of Capcom's special 5-game deal where some of the games ended up getting cancelled, one of them ended up only being a limited time exclusive, and one of them ended up being a straight up exclusive on the platform. The original release didn't sell well because the Gamecube didn't sell well to begin with, but the HD remaster of the games, which was released for the 7th and 8th generation consoles, did remarkably well, selling over 1.3 million copies across all platforms. The remake overhauled everything, but kept the signature gameplay style that the original game and series was known for. The biggest changes were its lighting, textures, character models, basic gameplay differences, and certain puzzles being different. The original release was on March 22, 2002 as a GameCube exclusive, but like I said earlier, was later brought to other consoles and PC in 2015 with a Nintendo Switch release in 2019. Now, growing up, I wasn't a super huge fan of horror or scare related media in general, but as the older I got, the more interested I became. After playing The Last of Us in 2022 on the PS3, I realized that I liked more scary games. Now, yes, we can debate if The Last of Us is a horror game or not, but it's all up into interpretation, but I think it definitely has horror related themes in it.
Yeah, my friends used to make fun of me back in the day because I never liked Goosebumps. Well, joke's on them. I actually like the horror genre now.
I have played a little bit of the original Dead Space late last summer and loved what I played of it. Also last summer, I bought the RE1 remake and the original RE4, but didn't fully beat a game in the series until I finished the 2019 remake of RE2, and I knew at that point that I loved Resident Evil. So far, I have beaten the RE2 remake, RE3 remake, RE7, and RE8, and have almost beaten the original RE4, and have fully beaten the RE4 remake, and now I have fully finished the 2002 remake of the first game as Jill, because she is the easier character to play as.
Well, now I think it's time for me to talk about the game itself. Maybe someday I'll talk about the 1996 original, but the remake improves on everything. Plus, I don't even own a way to play the original game, so the HD remaster, it is.
Okay, so the story of the original Resident Evil takes place on July 24th, 1998, outside the fictional city of Raccoon City, where members of the Raccoon City Police Department Special Tactics and Rescue Service, or STARS for short, are sent in to investigate a series of murders on the outskirts of the city. However, they end up finding a few dead members of their team and decide to hold up in an old mansion called the Spencer Mansion, which was built in the 1960s, and must find out what is causing the weird monsters to appear. You play as either Jill Valentine or Chris Redfield and try to survive with Albert Wesker and Barry Batson in Jill's story, but in Chris's story has Jill and Wesker survive and Chris meets up with Rebecca Chambers, which I don't have my own footage of, but in both stories discovered that a company named the Umbrella Corporation is responsible for the monsters and that Albert Wesker is secretly working for them as it releases a monster called the Tyrant, but in the end the Tyrant is killed and the mansion is blown up. And that's basically a rough outline of what happens. There's also this monster called Lisa Trevor towards the end of the game. Now yes, this game has multiple different endings depending on who survives. I mainly played it as Jill, but I did play as Chris for a little bit, and by the end of it, only Jill and Barry survived because I got confused and I got Richard killed because I did not find the anti-venom in time, and I didn't know how to save Chris at the lab. And yeah, the voice acting is not great most of the time, and it just comes off as real campy and not professional in my opinion, but it is better than the 96 original.
Now this is where I ruined my credibility. I don't like the original Resident Evil that much.
Mainly because of its fixed camera angles and tank controls. Now yes, that's what makes Resident Evil, but I just find it kinda hard to control and a bit disorienting at times. Another complaint is that the game doesn't really tell me what I'm supposed to do or where to go, so I ended up using a guide for almost the entire playthrough. Also do keep in mind that I was born a few months after Resident Evil 4, so maybe it's because I didn't grow up with games like this, but I did find it fun after I knew what to do. Anyway, you play the game from a third-person-ish perspective at fixed camera angles, meaning that if you move the character in a certain direction for a few feet, the camera angle will change. Your main objective is to find items and keys to progress to other areas of the Spencer Mansion, while taking out various types of monsters with a few different types of weapons. A big part of RE1 is solving puzzles and combining items to make weapons or items more useful, such as combining 2 green herbs to give you a mixed herb to refill your health. Examining items will also possibly unlock other items inside another. There is an inventory section where you have 8 item slots for Jill and 6 for Chris. There is also a health bar at the top left with a few stages, meaning fine, caution, and danger. Jill has a lockpick to open certain doors while Chris uses small keys. Jill can take less damage than Chris and can shoot slower. There is also a map of the game and contains 5 main locations, being the Spencer Mansion with 4 floors, the courtyard, the residence, and the lab towards the end of the game. There are also a few smaller areas like the place with the sharks, but this is what I found the most notable. Also on the map, there are a few areas called safe rooms where you can manually save your progress using a typewriter, but requires the use of an ink ribbon, which are limited and scattered throughout the map. Also in the safe room, there is the item box where you can drop off and store other items for later use. You also pick up first aid sprays to fully refill your health and ammo for other types of weapons, and there is also a spot for a defensive item such as a dagger. You mostly fight zombies which can later come back as crimson heads to do more damage, if not burn with a lighter. There is also these dogs, giant spiders that make my arachnophobia go out the hook, and these hunters which are like lizards, and the occasional boss fight, and that's basically what you do in the original Resident Evil. Now RE1's graphics look pretty decent still, considering that this is a remake of a 1996 game for the original PlayStation in 2002. It really shows the potential what the GameCube was capable of at the time. The shadowing and lighting is what I think stands out to me the most. On all consoles it targets 30 FPS, and in the HD version has the option for a 4:3 aspect ratio or 16:9, but I mostly played in 4:3 because the backgrounds are pre-rendered and I think they just look better that way.
Well, that's basically the GameCube remake of the Resident Evil 1 from 2002. Overall, I do like this game, it's just that I don't see myself doing a full playthrough as Chris anytime soon because of my thoughts expressed earlier. People do say that this game is really short and can be beaten in under 3 hours, but it honestly took me 17 hours to complete.